Who's doing the application? Let's touch base. Council meeting's now in session. I call it to order. We'll have our invocation and pledge allegiance to the flag by Councilman Russ Touchberry. Stand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Please bow with me. Heavenly Father, Lord, we just thank you for this beautiful day and this opportunity to come together in such a wonderful place, the town of Somerville. We just ask for your wisdom and guidance to be with us as we do our work this evening and to put a hedge of protection around all those that serve this community. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This year is a big year for the town of Somerville. It is our 175th birthday. The next item on the agenda is a proclamation. Whereas in August 1847, Henry Arthur, William Boyle, George Heap, and Edward Hutchinson petitioned the South Carolina legislature to create the town of Somerville from their 50-year-old settlement. And whereas incorporation papers were ratified and Somerville became an official town on December 17, 1847. And whereas the town of Somerville became known as the Flower Town in the Pines in 1925 for its abundance of its well-known trees. And whereas the town of Somerville's governing body and staff are committed to providing quality, efficient services to residents, visitors, and businesses, and promoting a high quality of life. And whereas the town of Somerville will celebrate its rich 175-year history throughout the town of 2022 and is committed to a promising future for generations to come. Now therefore, Ricky Waring, as mayor of the town of Somerville, do hereby proclaim the town's recognition of its 175th anniversary and encourage the community's participation in a year-long celebration. Next on the agenda is a presentation for the Sweet Tea Half Marathon folks to present a donation check to police, fire, and EMS. If you will welcome those folks to the podium, and I believe Kelly Hazel will be presenting that.
I'm Kelly Hazel. I'm the race director for the Sweet Tea Half Marathon and 10K. And this is our eighth year if you count the canceled COVID year. We are very proud to donate money to the fire and police and Dorchester EMS because without the race, without their support, we couldn't have the race. And most of our money, or all of our money, actually comes from our participants. We no longer take financial sponsorship. We do take people who donate things to our race, but our race is primarily a runners driven race. So all of our participants actually pay to be in the race, and then our proceeds go to the Somerville Fire and Police and the Dorchester EMS. What's important about that is that I ran the race this year, and so I ran it just so I could see exactly what goes on in the race, and everywhere you needed someone, the police are out there. They're at every turn. That is a very important turn for our runners to keep us safe. Our EMS people were out on bikes, so it was a very, very interesting to see how well covered our race is, all the runners, how well protected they are and how safe it is for our runners. And that's due to their diligence and their dedication to our race. We also want to talk about maybe a little bit for next year. We know that the path is going to be in jeopardy, and that puts our course in jeopardy. So in order to keep our race going and continue to donate as we do, we're going to need a little help kind of redesigning it so that we can keep doing it. But because of COVID, we kept our participation low, and even so, we were still able to donate $10,000 to the Somerville Fire, Police and Fire, and $5,000 to the Dorchester EMS. Cover check. You just need a picture. So you can, remember it all.
Okay. Council meetings, we need to approve the minutes of 4 council meetings. Do I have a motion that we approve them all?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes for the town council meeting December 9th, special call meeting December 13th, standing committee meeting January 10th, and special call council meeting on January 10th.
Second. Motion made and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. The ayes carry. Public hearing. Proposed development agreement between the town of Somerville and BGMP Development LLC regarding parcel TMS number 138-00-00-001, approximately 57.76 acres located at the intersection of Berlin G. Myers Parkway and East 5th North Street, Highway 78. Jesse.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just to start this, a second public hearing will be held at 6 p.m. on Thursday, February 10th, here in Council Chambers at Town Hall on the same development agreement. This development agreement will replace in entirety the original Parkway Town Center development agreement that was in place for this property in 2008. This development agreement also includes the public infrastructure improvement purchase agreement notation and also the tax increment financing. Kind of brings those into play, which is why we're replacing the previous development agreement. If you have any questions, I can try and answer those, but I think most of y'all are pretty familiar with this. Now it's open if anybody else would like.
Thank you, Jesse. We have any questions? You don't need to vote on this, do we?
No, we can just close the public hearing.
Okay. This time I'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor, we have several folks for public comment, item number 7.
Okay.
First up is Tom Clark.
Thank you. My name is Tom Clark. I'm a resident of South Point. I've been there for about 12 years. I moved here to be near my daughter, who's been there about 25 years. My daughter, Susan Richardson, sent each of you an extensive research package before, and I hope that you have reviewed it and have any questions that you may have had answered on it. I wanted you all to know she'd be here in person to address any questions, but her employer has her in Chicago this week, and she's obviously unable to quit her job and come do this. I wrote down what I want to say so I don't wander. I've been known to do that. I agree with those who have spoken or will speak in opposition to the proposed annexation of property adjacent to South Point. I address the financial impact on South Point residents and the taxpayers of Somerville. Please reject the application to annex property next to South Point. Transition will serve only the seller and builder to the financial and quality of life detriment of the residents of South Point, nearby subdivisions, and the taxpayers of Somerville. No one, none, zero who live in South Point that I have encountered are in favor of this. There's only a downside for South Point and adjacent communities. Earlier, I submitted detailed information to the council and council members for your consideration. I won't go into that. That'd be 10 minutes worth. You don't want to hear that now. I understand that nearly all new residential housing in Somerville is a loss when it comes to the revenue versus cost of the city. That makes it only worse for those of us who oppose this degradation of our properties and home investments to see our tax dollars squandered to the benefit of others. In this case, if the town annexes the property and changes to multifamily zoning to enable this project, then effectively over a period of 20 years, the town will have transferred nearly the whole sales price of their property. I'm using round figures here, a little over $2 million to the seller, because that is the loss that the city will suffer due to the cost benefit ratio being like it is for residential areas. On the other hand, if the property stays as it is, there's no added burden to the city. And there's no loss of value to South Point residents. There's no loss of quality of life to South Point residents. Please reject the application to annex and rezone the area in front of South Point. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Next, Mr. Mayor, is Ron Bullman.
Mr. Mayor, council members, Ron Bullman, I'm with Dan Ryan Builders. We would be the developer and ultimately the builder of the townhomes for this particular parcel. I was here on Tuesday for the standing committee meeting, so I understand that it's council's intention to deny the project tonight. So I won't go into any nitty-gritty details about the site plan or any of the product that we plan on putting on the parcel unless there's any questions from council. Have the engineer here tonight too, so he's available for questions as well. I would just leave you with one thought. During that standing committee meeting for the finance committee portion, I believe it was, that discussion ended with the idea that people are coming to Somerville. They're going to move here. It's a great place to live, obviously. It's I think 15 people per day are moving to the area. So I think Councilman Jenkins said they're coming. The question is, will Somerville and this council be the ones who are administering that and collecting the taxes on that? Or will it be Dorchester County? I would submit to you tonight that I'm not the owner of the parcel in question, and I don't speak for him, but I can tell you that he's motivated. It is, I think most of owners in Mendenhall and South Point would like for the parcel to stay exactly the way it is, I can tell you that's not going to happen either way. It is zoned in Dorchester County as TRM, which allows single-family homes and manufactured homes. Would really hate to see that parcel become a mobile home park. But I can tell you the owner of the parcel is dedicated to doing something with it, whether it be with me or not. So I just leave you with the thought tonight that a denial tonight doesn't make the parcel go away. It doesn't make the plan to develop it go away for the owner. It is a donut hole in the middle of Somerville. So if you've read the package, then you know it is surrounded on all sides by Somerville jurisdiction. It is in Somerville, and if it ever gets developed, it will effectively be in Somerville jurisdiction. So all I say is a denial tonight doesn't take it away from your jurisdiction. It just takes your control away. So I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Next, Mr. Mayor, is Daniel Probaska.
Good evening, council members. Thank you for the service that you provide to our community. I saw the discussion of American Rescue Plan funds on the agenda tonight and just wanted to offer my perspective. I'm a resident at 104 Shenandoah Court in Somerville, and I'm the president and CEO of Lions Vision Services, which is a nonprofit organization that serves all 46 counties in the state of South Carolina. As council comes back into the 2022 session, I encourage the council to take action in investing in the work undertaken by nonprofit organizations across the town. The town's nonprofit community would greatly benefit from the allocation of ARPA funds to create a town-wide competitive grant program from its portion of ARPA, or to make allocations to specific nonprofit organizations for qualified expenses. Critical support systems that make a thriving economy possible, such as childcare, job training, housing, food security, tourism, healthcare, education, and so much more, are championed and made possible by our town's nonprofit and philanthropic community. For every community and every sector to fully recover and thrive, investments in these critical services must be made. As council members consider how to best leverage the historic statewide one-time funding provided by the American Rescue Plan Act and other financial resources, the nonprofit sector could strongly benefit from investment in the work of nonprofit organizations. According to Together SC's survey of our state's nonprofits in the spring of 2021 and before that in the fall of 2020, many of our nonprofits saw disproportionate impacts on their operations due to COVID-19. From long-term mandated closures to record-setting demands for service, nonprofit organizations had to find a way to provide critical community services despite all challenges. My employer, Lions Vision Services, is among those organizations that has seen a significant increase in demand for healthcare services at the start of a decade during which the number of blind and visually impaired people in South Carolina will double without effective intervention and further burden our strained healthcare system. As South Carolina's nonprofit sector accounts for nearly 9%, or roughly 90,000 jobs of our state's workforce, an allocation of ARPA funds seems warranted. I also encourage the town to partner with the nonprofit and philanthropic sectors of our economy to ensure efficient and effective distribution of funds, and above all else, that they meet federal and state regulatory requirements. Philanthropic organizations can partner and provide valuable expertise needed for the design and successful implementation of any nonprofit investment program, while nonprofit perspectives can ensure a smooth application, award, and reporting process. Accelerate South Carolina recommended to the governor's office a nonprofit grant fund of $50 million, but with limited eligible services. Together SC has recommended to the State House a more robust grant program of $100 million, reaching all sectors of our economy and communities, but this is far from a secured and done deal. And I believe that town funds would further position and secure our local community for the strongest possible recovery. Somerville's economies depend on it, and I stand ready to help in any way. Thank you.
Next is Mr. Raymond Tucker.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, and members of council. My name is Raymond Tucker. I live in South Point Estates, so I'm here to speak about the proposal for South Point Ventures. I'm against the development, but I'm against it probably for a couple different reasons than my neighbors are. I was here for the standing committee meeting, and one of the topics that was brought up was talking about how there's 30,000 people coming, 100,000 people. There's a major difference in 100,000 people being in a 12 square mile area versus 100 square mile area. With that, the infrastructure of the area of 78 Berlin G. Myers is behind the times. The neighborhood of South Point is behind where it should be. When South Point Estates was built, the builders were supposed to do a turn lane in the neighborhood. It's a year behind schedule. It was supposed to start January of last year. And because of the legal issues, that's already behind. And that road is so far behind where it should be for the number of people that drive on it every day. The town has to get ahead of it. The infrastructure does not support more people in that area. It's already struggling as it is now. I'm not going to sit here and dig into the developer or anything like that. I live in one of Dan Ryan homes. The neighborhood in the back is very nice, but the development of that area has caused issues in the front. I was the third person to move into the estates. I've got a flooding issue in my house right now that I'm dealing with some legal action that has not been submitted yet, but I'm still working on that. If it rains, just one day of rain, I've got water up to my shin in my backyard, and I got a $400,000 house. To me, that's not acceptable. And the infrastructure of that area for water drainage, we know is a problem. Council's addressed it. It's something we haven't got caught up to yet. And I really hope this council puts that as a priority of upgrading the infrastructure of the area before adding more and more homes. I'm not going to take up any more of your time. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Hank.
Next, Tracy Hirsch.
Hi, I'm also here to speak against the proposed development in the front of South Point neighborhood for some of the same reasons as Raymond. We have a major infrastructure issue in Somerville, and I would actually be supportive of a moratorium on building altogether in Somerville until it's caught up. The roads cannot support any more people. The roads are now flooding because of all the development, and South Point is just one neighborhood of many, I'm sure. And I mean, 78 floods now. I've been here since 2008, and I know I'm one of the people that moved here, but Somerville has grown quite a bit, which is good. But also, when you grow too fast, it can also be bad. And we're seeing some of that now. We don't have the schools in place. If anybody watched the DD2, I didn't attend, but I watched the meeting, and they don't even have the land purchased. They're still looking for land to build the next high school. These children would be going to DD2 schools. So there's a big issue there. We have DD2 buses coming through and Berkeley County buses coming through on flooded roads in South Point, thanks to the building in the back of the neighborhood. That needs to be remediated. And what we get from Dan Ryan is a denial that it's happened. And in the last hearing, with the Standing Commission, he talked about, that we've always flooded. Well, we haven't always flooded. I've lived there for 13, 14, 15 years. I don't know. It's not been an issue. So there are quite a few issues with this, and I don't want to repeat things that other people have said, but there are no plans to build out 78 for several years. So where's that traffic going to go? And now we have another proposed, I guess, commercial or strip mall or something going on the corner there. I don't know if any of you've driven that 78 recently, but it will back up from 78 and Berlin G. Myers to and past South Point, that neighborhood. And that's a good mile, I would say. It's not a easy commute anymore or easy for anybody. So this proposed high density housing is going to affect everyone that travels that, not just South Point, not just Branch Creek, not just Summerwood or whatever the neighborhoods are. It's going to affect everybody. And what a lot of us do is we go through Lincolnville. So it affects Lincolnville too. And I've gone to one of their town meetings. They're not happy about all the building going on in Somerville uncontrolled because they're trying to limit what they have going on. Now, people are going to move here, but we've got to figure out the infrastructure before they do. Another thing to note is, and I know you all know this, but 78 is a hurricane evacuation route. How are we going to evacuate? We can't even get into town on a regular Friday or Saturday or anything. It's really that bad. And I invite you to drive it if you haven't recently, because it's not fun. And we just want to preserve Somerville as we know Somerville, the town of trees, you know, and the trees aren't there anymore. They're all disappearing. And it's really kind of sad that it's happening so fast. And that probably is why we flood, because the trees drink a lot of water. Asphalt doesn't. The grass sucks in the water, the trees drink it up. And, you know, that's a big part of the problem is we don't have anything to absorb the water anymore. And the retention ponds just don't work the same way as Mother Nature. You know, you can't fight Mother Nature. Let's see if there was anything else I had to say. I think that's about it. I just think, you know, it is properly zoned and it should, whatever goes there. I'm sorry, it doesn't make the seller of the property money, or it doesn't make builders money, but whatever goes there should be single family, or what did he say, manufactured. And as a side note to that, I have spoke to Dorchester County councilmen and several of them, and they are actually would be opposed to more high density housing as well, which is not, no offense to y'all, but they said, well, that's why they're going to the town, because we wouldn't allow it. And I don't know if they've talked to Dorchester County, but I think that was their kind of attitude towards that. Well, they're going to ask the town because we wouldn't permit it in this place or this area because of such high density already. So anyway, I'd like you to, you know, just keep those things in mind. We're all just trying to make Somerville a nice place to live and keep it that way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Cindy Gillette.
Good evening. Thank you, council members, for allowing us to speak. So I'm speaking about the South Point Ventures and South Point putting in the townhomes. A lot of things have already been touched on about the traffic, the infrastructure not being there. I am a resident of South Point Estates, so one of the new neighborhood that was built by Dan Ryan. I was actually the first one in that neighborhood, in that back part. So to add on a little bit to what's been spoken to the point of the infrastructure and the traffic, for me, one of the major concerns I have is the availability of emergency services. I do have a child who has significant health issues. And at this point, I can't even get into my neighborhood on a good day, much less a bad day. And if my child has a medical emergency, I cannot get emergency services to her. There is no other entry or exit out of that neighborhood. There is only one. By adding more townhomes, we now have compounded that issue. So until we have some type of infrastructure, until we can ensure that we can take care of those residents, should an emergency arise, there should not be additional items put on that land. We do understand that at some point, that land is probably going to be developed. We do know that the seller is highly motivated to do so. But our ask is that, again, that infrastructure be there. The residents, the town be protecting the residents and making sure that we can be taken care of. But in specific to this ask from Dan Ryan Builders, as someone who has bought a home from them, we have had multiple promises and have not had follow through. So this is where my concern is if now we're going to give them additional land at the front and impact our property values when they're not taking care of the items that they were already supposed to take care of, such as our amenity center. We live in a high value home neighborhood, Yet our amenity center does not support that. Dan Ryan has not taken care of that. Also, our HOA is ran currently by Dan Ryan, and we have no representation. We cannot get a conversation with them. We've yet to have an HOA meeting in 3 years since that development, since I moved in. So having them have additional power over something else makes me worry for my home value, makes me worry about what they're going to do when they're not delivering on promises that were made when they bought South Point Estates. Along with that being the turn lane. We were told there would be a turn lane. So that was part of the approval process for them to do South Point Estates. Well, that's yet to happen. So as Raymond spoke to, that's a year past due. That is a consistent pattern we have seen with Dan Ryan Homes. So that is another reason why I would ask for you to deny their petition. I thank you for your time.
Next, Rosemary Tucker.
Yes, good evening, council. Thank you for your time allotment. My name is Rosemary Tucker. I have lived in South Point in the same home at Westmoreland since 1990 when I purchased out there. I've seen a lot of change, good and bad. Seen a lot of my neighbors come and go. On my street alone, I and the neighbor across from me are the only original owners that moved in there. My concern is, I won't really reiterate a lot on what our prior neighbors have suggested or talked about, but I would like to even more open up, not only for these townhomes that they're wanting to put in up front, but to almost generalize it a little bit better. I strongly suggest that the town of Somerville monitor more and put more implementation in order so that you could secure a slowdown in this building construction. I'm not against construction. It is a tax revenue for the town. But when you start stacking homes in on top of each other, whether they're townhomes, apartments, or single-family residential, these footprints of these homes have gotten horrendous to a setback. Some of these subdivisions over in Nexton, you're talking about a 10-foot setback. You get a lot of complaints, not so much on the town, but from the general utility easements. There's no place for them to build. And you get, utilities get complaints about the equipment that they have to put in somewhere with street lighting or transformers or switch gears and junctions. These items are sometimes left less than 5 feet to the front door. It's repulsive. The town of Somerville has always had a beauty of the land of the pines, a rural area, if you will, the neighborhood street, the community effort, the community growth. When you start stacking these people in here on top of each other and allowing developers to build on such a small footprint, it creates a massive, massive amount of people in on such a small area. Sure, it looks good, I guess, out in Nexton in Midtown. It's impressive. But those folks, to be quite honest, you can't even paint your house without having to go out and put plastic over your neighbor's vehicles for the overspray. It's gotten that ridiculous. I would ask that the town look forward in the future with any of these developments that they're planning and proposed. Look at a bigger footprint. I know it's an issue with developers. They want to be able to put a time stamp on it. They want to be able to finish construction from start to finish in 3 to 4 months. And quite frankly, they don't care what happens whenever they leave. They're done. They don't care about the subdivision. They don't care about the folks living there. My question to the council is, what happens when we have another Hurricane Hugo? How are we going to get 1,500 homes in a high density area out to evacuate these people in a timely manner. No, most of them are going to end up staying. And hopefully their home is a brick home, which statistically holds together better in a storm than vinyl siding or even hardy plank. Again, I ask that the town not only look forward to this, like I said, the HOAs and everything, they are a problem. Quite frankly, I've dealt with it for many years because sad to say, in the original section of Dovewood, the HOA is not strong. And I've turned to council and to Mr. Palmer in his department with code enforcement, and there's nothing they can do. So here we have an established subdivision with issues and we can't get anyone to even address them, which causes problems with our cost, with our home values. And by sticking townhomes that look all vinyl siding up at the head of the road, high density, when it doesn't reflect what the rest of the subdivision even looks like. I am against it. It does cause a lot of issues. And I'm just not pleased with them even proposing to want to do this. Thank you.
Lastly, for item 7, Stephanie Kraus.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Kraus and I live in South Point. We actually are a military family that moved here 6 years ago, and we were so excited to establish our first home in Somerville, and we decided to actually stay after my husband retired from the military. And so all of this neighborhood stuff is very concerning to all of us as well. But we loved the town of Somerville for its integrity, for its quaintness, and even simply for the trees. My 10-year-old keeps looking around saying, how can we be a town of the pines if we're going to cut every tree down just so we can stick another building up? So obviously there's a feel that we moved here for or stayed here for when we could have gone anywhere. We could have gone back home, and we stayed in South Carolina, specifically here. Our neighborhood means a lot to us. And just to reiterate some of the same points that everybody has brought up, we've expressed our concerns about the safety, about the lack of resources. We've talked about the flooding. I've been an avid walker in our neighborhood and the adjoining neighborhood, South Point Estates, and almost every day. And the flooding is so terrible that often I have to walk just straight down the middle of the road to just not be in a huge, massive puddle. This is far worse than it was after tropical storms and hurricanes from 5 years ago. And that's just because of the development and the lack of attention that has gone to addressing the needs of our neighborhood. My daughter is school aged and she attends Sangre Intermediate. The amount of time it takes me to get her to school because of the traffic, which is largely due to 78, is already a problem. I can't even imagine how much worse that will be if we keep adding people into this area. We are a single entrance neighborhood, and that adds huge problems for an evacuation route. It adds huge problems for those of us who have school-aged children, those of us who are, luckily I don't commute, but my husband does, and just the congestion in general. The amount of serious wrecks that have increased right at the entrance of our neighborhood has been very, very intense. So there's so many multiple issues going on, and we're not being heard. We're saying the same things over and over again because those points are very valid and important. It's not anything small. We are worried about our home value. We are worried about flooding from a basic rainstorm. We're not talking about a major weather event. We're just talking about a typical summer storm, and we can't get out of our driveways. That's just ridiculous. And we're trying to make sure that this doesn't continue to get worse and worse. We're all active members in the community, and we love the town of Somerville. And so we just ask that you hear us and you reject this proposal, and that you protect the integrity of our neighborhood and the surrounding areas. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Petitions, Madeline.
Petition by South Point Ventures, a South Carolina general partnership to annex Dorchester County TMS number 138-00000015, approximately 15.7 acres located at South Point Boulevard and East Fifth North Street, currently zoned TRM Transitional Residential District in Dorchester County, and will be zoned MFR Multifamily Residential upon annexation into the town of Somerville's municipal limits. This would be in Council District 2. The Planning Commission held a public hearing and unanimously voted down a recommendation for approval at their meeting on December 20th, 2021. Planning and Development Committee voted to move the item to full council with a recommendation for denial at their meeting on January 10th, 2022.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we deny the annexation.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor and a second. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor of this motion signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Guys carry.
Under pending bills and resolutions, A, second and final reading of an ordinance to approve lease of 100 West Richardson Avenue, Suite C, Somerville, South Carolina, 29483.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we approve second and final reading of this ordinance.
Second.
Motion made in second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of this signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes carry.
10, introduction of bills and resolutions. First reading of an ordinance to extend the memorandum of understanding for the sale of town-owned property known as 1.95 acres more or less, consisting of 213 West Second South Street, TMS 137-0704-007, 208 Cedar Street, TMS number 137-0704-005, and 210 West Richardson Avenue, TMS number 137-0704-002.
Mr. Mayor, I'd ask that we defer first reading on this until after executive session.
Need to call for a second. You made a motion.
Okay, I had a second on,
I'll second that.
okay. Any discussion? All in favor of this signify by raising your right hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Ayes carry.
Item B, first reading of an ordinance to amend ordinance 21-1102, Chapter 2, Article 2, Division 4, Sections 2-132 B and C of the Code of Laws of the Town of Somerville to correct a Scrivener's error using commission versus committee in Section B, and to designate that the mayor shall serve as an unpaid ex officio member of the Somerville Commissioners of Public Works in conformance with South Carolina Code annotated Section 5-31-220 in Section 5.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we make this amendment to the ordinance.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made in second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of this signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Ayes carry.
Item C, first reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 8, Article 4, Division 2, Local Accommodations Tax by amending Section 8-122 to provide remittance made by electronic means. Section 8-123 to designate the business license official or his or her designee to conduct inspections, audits, and administration and provide for applicable penalties. Section 8-124 by deleting the provision for collection by mutual agreement and provided for penalties for late remittance.
I'll make a motion, we approve this.
Second.
Motion made in second. Any discussion?
I've got a question, Mr. Mayor.
We are empowering the business license official to do inspections, audits, and administration and provide for applicable penalties. I thought we already had something like that in place.
Councilman Brown, this is a result of the town taking over collections from Berkeley County. So Berkeley County was handling all of that for us before.
Okay.
So now that we've taken that over, this is just putting our ordinance in place
All right.
so that we
gotcha.
have
All right,
that.
good.
Anybody else? Okay, all in favor signify by raising your right hand, saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise, ayes carry.
Item D, first reading of an ordinance to amend the Somerville Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 3, Section 3.4.2 D.3, Manufactured Housing Design Standards. Planning Commission held a public hearing and made a recommendation for approval at their meeting on December 20th, 2021. At their meeting on January 10th, 2022, the Planning and Development Committee voted to move the item to full council with a recommendation for approval with a change in the language to leave the 6-inch overhang requirement, but allow manufactured homes with less than a 6-inch overhang located in the town as of February 1st, 2022, to be moved elsewhere within the town limits.
Mr. Mayor, I would move first reading of the ordinance as presented by staff with no amendments.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Bill, your motion is to go on the recommendation of staff.
My motion is to give first reading to the ordinance as presented by staff with no amendments.
Okay, and Aaron seconded. Okay, any discussion?
Yes, sir. Just a clarification. We received an email indicating that new manufactured housing had 4-inch overhangs. I just wanted to see if staff had received that and had any input in that regard.
Well, I believe that the motion that Mr. McIntosh has put before you is to go with the first recommendation, which was to remove any reference to the overhang altogether. So, but yes, we did receive that email, but we're referring back to the original.
I'm a little slow. Thank you.
No problem.
You're doing great, Russ.
All right, I think everybody understands. All in favor signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Item E, first reading of an ordinance providing for the execution and delivery of a development agreement concerning TMS number 138-00000001 in the town of Somerville, Dorchester County, South Carolina, by and between the town of Somerville and BGMP Development LLC, authorizing the execution and delivery of a public infrastructure improvements purchase agreement by and between the town of Somerville, South Carolina, and BGMP Development LLC, and other matters relating thereto.
I'll make a motion. We approve first reading.
Second,
Can I get clarification on what this is?
second for clarification. Okay, discussion.
Councilman Jackson, this is the development agreement that we had the public hearing on earlier. And we'll have a second public hearing next month.
Mr. Mayor, if I may be heard, it's my typical practice to vote for first reading of an ordinance. We have an extra month or at least 10 days to study an issue before giving second reading. Unless I'm missing something, I think we got this development agreement yesterday. I tried to read it. I'm a little under the weather. I happen to be a lawyer, but I found it very dense, very complex, and I just couldn't get through it all. And if I missed it getting to me earlier, it's my fault, but I saw it for the first time yesterday. So I'm not going to vote for first reading at this point.
Motion in a second.
Uh,
Motion in a second, and it's
Yeah,
discussion.
yeah. Okay. All right, all in favor, Bill wants more time to read it, but all in favor of this, we got a first, second. All in favor of this, signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye. I know it's 50 pages or something like that. Jill told me, Bill.
500.
I read about 12. I'm in A.
500 pages? Damn.
500 pages.
It's 500 pages because it also includes the entire code. So
Well,
that's
you read-
part of the reason it's
You and Jill
that.
can read it for me.
I'm fast, but I'm not that fast.
Okay.
Item F, first reading of an ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of not exceeding 20 million aggregate principal amount limited obligation bonds, tax increment pledge, series 2022 of the town of Somerville, South Carolina, for the purposes of defraying the cost of certain redevelopment projects within the town, fixing the form and details of the bonds, limiting the payment of the bonds from the sources provided herein, providing for the disposition of the proceeds thereof, providing for the terms and conditions under which additional bonds may be issued, and other matters relating thereto.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion. We give first reading to this ordinance.
Second.
Second? Did I get a second?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any discussion? All right, all in favor signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise, ayes carry.
Item G, first reading of an ordinance to adopt the 2021 through 2026 capital improvements plan.
I'll make a motion, we approve that.
Second.
Motion on the floor and seconded. Any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Number 11, miscellaneous. Item A, election of mayor pro tem.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we give this position to nominate Bob Jackson.
I'll second.
Motion on the floor to elect Bob Jackson as mayor pro tem in a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to state, obviously, I'm not certain of the traditions of this body and being the first meeting, but I had spoken with somebody previously. And of course, I've spoken with you and my commitment was to somebody else. So I'm not voting. No disrespect or doubt in your integrity and the ability to carry out your duties, sir.
You gotta do call for the question. Okay, call for the question. All in favor signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
For,
Any opposed?
opposed, excuse me.
Nay.
What's that? I can't count. 4-3. Okay, 4-3. Congratulations, Bob.
Thank you, Mayor.
Item B, assignment of standing committees of council.
Mr. Mayor, I would move that we appoint to Parks and Recreation, Aaron Brown, Kim McGarden-Smith, Bob Jackson, to Planning, Terry Jenkins, Terry Jenkins, Bob Jackson, and Russ Touchberry, to Public Safety, Aaron Brown, Bill McIntosh, and Terry Jenkins, and to Public Works, Kim McGarden-Smith, Bill McIntosh, and Russ Touchberry.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Any discussion?
Okay, is that a motion, Bill?
It is a motion.
Yeah, you got a second?
I'll
did.
second it.
I can't hear. Okay, anybody else got anything? All in favor signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed? What we got?
So far, 5-1.
Okay. That's-
You
Motion
vote?
carried.
Are you voting?
No.
Item C, discussion of American Rescue Plan funds. And then there are two sub-items underneath. A, home repairs and weatherization for LMI communities is the first.
Mr. Mayor, this was added to the agenda, I believe by Councilman McIntosh. We have, if you can flip to the next. I just wanted to bring this up to help hopefully aid in the discussion. This is the first tranche of funds that we've received. The items that are highlighted in yellow, those are funds that have been appropriated by council at this point. And the two items highlighted in green, I believe, are what the items that Mr. McIntosh wants to discuss today. So just wanted to have this for your information.
Thank you, Lisa. I would make a motion that we approve $100,000 of ARP funds for home repairs and weatherization in low to moderate income communities, and $125,000 in American Rescue Plan funding for the workforce housing program.
What would the workforce housing program consist of?
Michael?
That's a great question. That is an allowable expense under ARP, but it does not prescribe what the program looks like. With direction from council and the appropriation, we would then work to develop a plan that would actually implement a workforce housing program, bring it back for council's consideration. But ultimately, it will look like what we choose for it to look like, and that's going to require thought and leadership from staff, but also direction from council as to who would be eligible and how we would determine the eligibility, who would manage that program.
I think I'd like to do those workshops before we put the money on it. May want to put more, may want to put less.
I agree with Councilman Jackson on this. I don't have a problem with the funding. I'm not sure how we're going to manage it. I'm not sure who's going to oversee it. I don't think that's something that the town is capable of doing.
Yes.
And should not do. So I think some definition as to who will manage the funds and manage the program, and a little bit more guts to what is workforce housing. We discussed, as well as I remember, two different items. One was I'm going to say an in-house employee program that we discussed, and the other one was a community program. I'm not sure which one this is. So I have no objections. I just want to understand more before I approve anything.
Let me ask you, from Mike, on this workforce housing program in the American Rescue Plan, didn't they designate an American Rescue Plan when it was drafted by, and passed by Congress, that as to the specifics of the plan and how they expected it to work?
No, they have not given specific direction as to how to create that type of a program. They've specified eligibility in terms of defining low and moderate income communities, communities that were particularly distressed by the conditions of the pandemic. And those are generally the populations of folks that might be eligible for participation in this type of program. But they did not provide any detailed instructions as to how to implement it. That's
Well, we, under this proposal right here, we are not spending a whole lot of money on this particular item. So, but I think it's something that apparently the Washington DC folks felt was important. So how do you want to deal with this, Bill?
Well, I was under the impression from discussions with our administrator that the staff was recommending this, talking about the workforce housing program, and that they did have a plan, and the plan was to start with our own employees, and that our own employees that were unable potentially on their own to obtain financing, that we were going to assist in that. If the staff no longer wants to do that, I'll amend my motion and have the full $225,000 go to home repairs and weatherization in low to moderate income communities.
I'll second the habitat with the idea we need to see the contract and
Right.
what it is and approve that before that happens.
And absolutely, allocating the funds is not authorizing anybody to sign a contract.
Yeah, but I'd like to keep it at the 100,000 and look at the other program and maybe still do that.
No, that was my motion to amend.
Well, I think since, you know, some of these low and moderate income communities in my District 1, we've done some work in the past with some grants from COG. I think it would make sense to combine the two and apply the whole 225,000 to home repair and weatherization, because that is something that's of need right now. I can think of 5 or 6 homes that we could use that money on. I had a lady call me a couple of days ago. She was the cook at Shoney's. Shoney's is closed up. She's not working. She's in her 60s and she's got a severe problem. Her roof is leaking. She owns her house, but she can no longer take care of it. So these are the type of situations. So with no objections from council, that's what I think would make sense, because then we know how the money is going to be used. The workforce housing program is, we can't get our hands around it at this point, but even so, if we did, I don't think 125,000 would really make much difference, but it would make a big difference, I think. It would allow us to be able to work with Habitat to repair maybe 6, 7 houses.
Mr. Brown, that was what I meant by my motion. I don't know if you seconded my motion, but I'll second yours. That we use the whole 225,000 for home repairs and weatherization in low to moderate income communities.
Because we do have, you know, Somerville's a great town and we've got a great economy here, but we have pockets of poverty. And some are not, all of them are not in my district. But so I think this is something that we could use this money for. So anyway, I'd make the motion then that we commit the whole 225, combine these 225K to work with Habitat to see if we can help some people.
Second.
We commit how much, Aaron?
225,000. Mr. Brown, did you, I just want to make sure I understood the last words. Was your suggestion that the funds be, that we work on an agreement with Habitat to manage these funds? Because I don't think we can be picking and choosing.
I agree. I mean, that's what initially when we talked about it with Lisa, that's what we thought. We would have a reputable firm to deal with the issue of determining who qualifies and that sort of thing, because the town's not capable of doing that. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, I'm comfortable.
I'll go along with that. As long as we're not responsible for going out and reaching in and just hand picking somebody and say, okay, we're gonna fix their home. That'll get us in trouble. You know, we get Habitat or some other organization like that to do it, yeah.
So, Mr. Mayor, just to make sure I'm tracking, we had 3 motions and an amendment with seconds. And we have a final motion. I just want to make sure we're doing things procedurally okay so that it sticks. But the final motion, so that I understand it, is that we are going to apply the $125,000 and the $100,000 to the home repairs and weatherization in low income communities. Am I understanding this correctly?
Well, we're gonna hear from Aaron right now.
Yeah,
We're gonna find out
You're correct.
what the motion is.
That's the
Total.
motion and that's the second. It's the same motion was made, I think, 3 different times.
Yeah, he's got it right.
It's a motion to
Total.
amend
So
my original motion.
amended your middle,
Yeah, we have to vote on it.
okay, and the total amount of money is how much?
225,000.
225. So it went from 100 to 225.
It's combining those 2 pools of funds.
Huh?
It's combining the original 100,000 for weatherization and the 125 for the workforce housing program and putting it all toward the weatherization.
Okay.
And I understand it. I just, should part of the motion be to be administered by, not by the town, but by an approved outside vendor such as Habitat?
Right. And that's,
I would like to add that to the motion
I'll
make
add that
clear.
to the, I will add that to the motion as written. Home repairs and weatherization and LMI communities, 225,000 contract with Habitat to manage. So we'll do nothing until we get the contract secured with Habitat.
I get that as well.
Okay, motion on the floor. What Aaron just said, Bill seconded. We done discussed it. All in favor signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Okay. Opposed?
I think that's, I'm sorry. I think that was a motion to amend. So now we have to vote on the motion as amended.
We got to vote on what?
Correct.
We need to vote again on the amendment?
On the motion as amended.
Oh, the motion as amended, okay. All in favor of the motion as amended, signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Motion carried.
The next item is public comment, general items. One person, Kevin Carroll.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Carroll. I live at 206 Thames Avenue in Newington. First of all, Mr. Mayor and Council, I want to thank you for reinstating the single stream recycling. I no longer have to collect all this junk in different bags, all of my garage, then once a month go off to the convenience site in 61. I throw it all in one bin, I roll it down to the curb, and by noon it disappears. It's a wonderful thing. I put out now about 25% of my trash barrel in a full recycling. So I figure you'll be saving some money on the haulage and tipping fees of the trash and saving space at the landfill. So thank you very much for doing that. Second, the Hutchison Square holiday lighting was amazing. I want to thank everyone who put the idea together and hung the lights. If you got there just at the right time, it looked like that park in the Jimmy Stewart movie, It's a Wonderful Life, minus the snow. The Christmas parade, I marched with the local group in the parade. It was a great sunny, warm day. People were packed 20 feet deep at some points on Main Street. It was a great community event. Thanks to all who planned it, made it work. I've worked parades. There's a lot of time behind the scene. And there's a lot of saying, please don't rain all the time when you do a parade. It was a great event. It actually looked perfect. And most of all, it was a fun event for all. This evening, you did a proclamation on the 175th anniversary of Somerville. In 1920, Somerville had a population of 2,250. By 1960, it exploded to 3,500. 2022, we're probably pushing 60,000 soon. As you can tell by the way I speak, I am not a native to Somerville. I came from a place far off, but a place where history is a very important part of daily life. As a child walking through Boston, I'd go past historic sites and buildings that you all learned about in your American Revolutionary class in school. The vast majority of the residents of Somerville, like me, came from someplace else, but now we live here. So I would like to challenge them to take the time during the 175th year to read and learn more about the history of Somerville, about our historic sites in town and the names of the people who built and nurtured Somerville. Take the time to find out the story of the families whose names are now on the street signs. People don't think of that. That's usually the best part of learning history. And just for a good accent thing, and you can always go over to the Dorchester site because Dorchester was originally people from Boston, but they didn't have the same accent. Theirs was different. So for the people who are here now, the new people like me, Somerville history is now your history too. So learn more about the town you now call home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Give the gentleman a hand.
He lives in my district.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we go into executive session, discuss personnel, contractual, and legal matters. Second.
Motion made and second. We go into executive session. Any discussion?
Someone published what we're going to.
Yeah, you did, didn't you?
Yep, Mr. Mayor, we're going into executive session to receive legal advice and updates on the Croft et al. Versus the town et al. With related Harbison and Hudson cases and Applegate versus the town. Received legal advice regarding the dissolution of the Somerville Redevelopment Corporation, a personnel matter related to harassment of parks and recreation staff members by a third-party citizen, and a contractual matter related to the sale of town-owned property.
All in favor of this signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed, ayes carry.